If you didn't know this Revolutionary War figure, you will now, and he might become your favorite. Meet the frontier giant that the British couldn't break, Daniel Morgan. He was flogged nearly 500 times and survived. He was shot through the jaw, and he kept writing. He built a rifle corps that terrified British officers before firing shots. And at the Battle of the Cowpens, he designed a trap so elegant that war colleges still study it to this day. During the French and Indian War, a British officer struck Morgan with the flat end of his saber. Morgan knocked him out. The punishment was 500 lashes, and that was effectively a death sentence. According to the accounts, Morgan stayed conscious the entire time and counted each stroke with the drummer. He lived, and he joked for years that they stopped at 499, and that they still owed him one. Not long after that, Morgan rode out from a frontier fort with another courier. They were ambushed. His partner was killed instantly, and a musket ball smashed through Morgan's neck and jaw and blew out some of his teeth. He clung to the saddle, but spurred the horse. Dazed and bleeding, somehow he made it back to the fort alive. When the Revolution began, George Washington gathered sharpshooters that conventional officers didn't want and placed them under the command of Dan Morgan. The unit became known as Morgan's Rifle Corps. They carried long rifles with far greater effective range than the smoothbore muskets. They moved fast, struck under cover, and deliberately targeted non-commissioned officers and officers to shred the enemy control. British regulars called this murder. Americans called it smart. At the Battle of Quebec in 1775, Benedict Arnold was wounded, and Dan Morgan took command. He rushed the barricade. At point-blank range, volleys burned his face and knocked him off a ladder. He climbed again, vaulted over the barricades, and fought from house to house until he was surrounded. He refused to hand his sword to the British soldiers. He instead gave it to a priest that was passing by. He spent months as a prisoner of war and returned to the army angry and determined. In 1777, at the Battle of Saratoga, Morgan's riflemen harassed the British soldiers. They used the terrain to their advantage. A famous story credits one of his riflemen, Tim Murphy, as killing General Simon Fraser at a distance of about 300 yards. Historians debate the facts, but the effect is in no doubt. British morale is cracked. Johnny Burgoyne surrenders, and the French decide that the Americans are worth helping. In January of 1781, Dan Morgan faces off against Banastre Tarleton at the Battle of the Cowpens. Tarleton was fast, aggressive, and eager to smash any militia. Morgan used that aggression and designed a battlefield to consume it. His plan was relatively simple. He would place riflemen at the front, ordered them to fire 2 controlled volleys before they fell back, and then he put militia behind them, told them to fire once, and conduct a planned withdrawal. He held Continental regulars on a slight rise to anchor the line. To an enemy that liked to build on momentum, the American center looked like it was collapsing. Tarleton took the bait. He drove his men hard, broke formation in the chase, and crested the rise to find a solid wall of Americans waiting for him. At Morgan's signal, the Continentals advanced. It was a double envelopment, executed in minutes. Tarleton's legion shattered. In less than an hour, the British army in the South was wrecked, leading to the last major battle of the war, the Battle of Yorktown. Congress even struck a special gold coin for Morgan's victory. He would later ride to help suppress the Whiskey Rebellion. Even in his 50s, he was still a trouble magnet. One court record has him breaking the jaw of someone in a bar fight, but the frontierman who couldn't died finally did in 1802. Daniel Morgan was not polished. He took punishment and returned it with a purpose. He trained a unit that the enemy feared, and he built battle plans that turned militia and riflemen into the sharp edge of a sword. And Dan Morgan remains one of the Revolution's most unstoppable legends.